Hello, so welcome. So in this video, we're actually going to be building um, a basic application where you can do crowd functionality, create, read, update, and delete. Right. So basically, what's going to happen is more like you can come is basically going to be an e-library website. So you can go there, create an account, add a book, and then edit the book, delete the book, and so forth and so forth. So let's just get to work. So for this project, we're actually going to be working with Bootstrap, and if you don't really know much on Bootstrap, I would strongly recommend you watch the Bootstrap video, right? To get more understanding of all of that. But for this case, we're actually going to just pick up. We're actually going to pick up Bootstrap here. So I'll pick it up, right? So and then I actually have a folder already, right? So I have this e-library folder I created specifically for this project. So I'm just going to paste it in here, right? So you can see it's already showing here. And for this video, I'm assuming you already have good understanding of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, Bootstrap. Then you already have understanding of PHP. Please, if you don't have all of those, go and watch the videos on them, right? Check the front end videos, then course, and then watch the PHP video, right? Before we get right into this video, so please just check all of those out before we actually uh before you get to this video. But I already have my XAMPP open, and I've turned on Apache. I've started Apache and then MySQL. So um let's get to work, shall we? All right. So basically, um this Bootstrap folder, okay. So this Bootstrap folder, I like it to be in say let's I like it to be in a folder, say assets, right? And then I just cut this, and then I'll put it in here, right? So let's start creating the file. So let's first create an index.php. So this is the page. This is the page that will come up once they go to the web address. And how do you go to the web address, right? So if we click on localhost, let me just get that localhost. This is where it is currently on my the computer, right? So folder is e library. And if I click index.php, you can see, so it's loading up this file, right? But there's literally nothing in there, so it's not doing anything. Let me generate something. So just generate some HTML, and let's put something there so you can see, right? With this, okay, library index.php. All right, input anything. Hello. So let's just look at that. So you can see that it's loading that up, right? So I'm just going to link my Bootstrap first things first. So I just say e-library library. I'm going to link my Bootstrap. So link ref assets sorry, so assets slash bootstrap slash css slash bootstrap domain.css rel equals to style sheet and type equal to text slash css, right? So then I'm going to link jQuery. I'm just going to copy jQuery. Right, I have this JS, so I have jQuery here. So I'm just going to copy that, and then I'll put that in here. So alright, so I'm going to link them up now. So I'm going to have so I have script tag script on say source called jQuery JS. Right, just copy this, cover this, right, and then I close this script. So source equal to JS with assets. All of these are here, assets, and you can see them here. You can see the files, right? Assets slash JS slash jQuery, right? So I'll link my jQuery. I'm also going to link Popper. I'm going to link Popper. So okay, so I'm going to link my Bootstrap JS files, and I'm going to link Popper. I'll have assets, Bootstrap 5.3.3. I'll have JS, and I'll have popper.min.js, and I'll do the same but for Bootstrap, right? So that's up and running. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to I want to pick up some starter templates, right? So basically what we're going to have is we're going to have a home page, then you have a sign up, and you have a login. Then once you click on sign up, you see the sign up page, click on login, you see the login page, and then with the sign up you can create an account. With the login you can log in, right? So let's quickly do that first. So but let's just use the index page. So let's just have something for the index. I'm just going to go to Bootstrap, and then I'll just get some navigation. Bootstrap. Please also watch the Bootstrap video if you don't really have much, if you don't really understand what Bootstrap is. I'm just going to get that, and I'm going to work with that. So docs. I'll come to navbar, and I'm going to go to responsive, right? Try and get this responsive behaviors. I need a particular navbar I want. Alright, so I particularly want this, right? So just gonna paste it here. Before I do that, let's see. Alright, so I want to create a div, and I say class equal to container fluid, alright, and I say div, and I say class equal row, and I say div, and I say class equal to call md12, and I just paste it in here, right? So I'm gonna make some amends to it definitely. So let's just first adjust this properly, right? So I'll put this in, I'll bring this here, right? So here's what we're going to have now in the E library. So basically this is what we have, right? So I'm going to do some work, and I'm going to changing this to E library, right? I don't need all these forms, so I'm going to get rid of it, right? So this is the home page. So when you come here, it's going to come to index.php, and when you go to this will be sign up, and sign up is going to go to register.php, and then this is able, we're getting rid of it because we want the link clickable. We're going to get rid of all of these, and then login is going to go to login is going to go to ref, go to login.php, right? So with that being said and done, we can see all of that here, right? So for the home page, nothing too spectacular, right? We're just going to have basic write-up saying okay, so let's just do something. Let's just copy. Okay, let's have another row. We're gonna have another row. Alright, so in this row, just gonna have basically a write-up, right? In that write-up, what am I going to say? I'm just going to put h1, then I'll just say welcome to E store let's just say store and manage your books, right? So we'd say text center. I want that to be at the center, and with that we're going to have this, right? So nothing too spectacular, like I said, just basic stuff. Okay, so let's work on the sign up page. So on the sign up page, I'm going to duplicate, I'm going to copy all of this, right? And then for the sign up page, I'll have sign up register.php, and then I'm going to paste this. In this case, I'm going to change the active current page. Yeah, I'm going to put this here to make this the active page, right? And then in this particular place, we're going to have a form. So just get Bootstrap forms. So if I click on forms, where is that stuff? Forms. All right, forms. So we want a basic form that just has email to sign up. What we're going to have is first name, last name, email, first name, last name, email, then password, right? So that's what I'm going to have. So I just copy this, right? So here I'll just put create an account, and then I just get rid of all of that, right? And then I'll have a row. Let's say div class equals to column md 4, right? And then I'll close that, and I'll do that again. Div class equal to call md 4, and I'll close that, and I say div class equals to call md 4, right? So we're gonna have this here. Alright, so let's see what that looks like, right? Okay, so we click on sign up, and we have this, right? So it's beginning to look at it. This index, okay, we've already linked the pages there. So, but basically, we don't need all. We don't need some of the things there. We don't need this. We don't need this text area. So what do we need? We just need 4 text input. So I'll copy this, and email. So that's for first name, last name. This will be for email. This will be for first name, last name, email, password, right? So email and then password. So we'll just keep it that simple. Okay. So here we'll say first name, and then we just say first name. I will change it of type text, and then here we would say ID first name, and we'll say name equal to first name, right? And then placeholder, I don't really need that self, so just get rid of that. So I just copy this, and then I'll paste it for this, right? And then we'll change here to last name, So yes, so this has been changed to last name. So I'm also going to change this to last name. So say last name, and then we're going to change it to last name, and I'll give it an idea of last name. So email, just leave it email, give it a type of email, and then we'll give you an idea of email, right? Let's just put a placeholder. We'll say placeholder, and then we'll say do, and here we say placeholder, we say John. Then password, we give this password, and we give it a type of password. And then please, we strongly recommend you have good knowledge on HTML before you come into this video. You can go to the front end course and get an understanding of it. To understand all of this, then you should also look at the PHP part of this code, and then MySQL before you come to this video, right? So, and then we'll put password, right? It's email here, should just be email. And then password, and we put password here. We put password, right? So, we don't really place a lot for password. Alright, so this is for sign up, create an account. Alright, so we're going to make a few. Let's put something. We'll put buttons for submit, right? And then we say submit. So put button type, and we'd say submit the form. Submit, and we'd say class BTM primary. Would say name equal to submit. Then we say submit. So we have this, and then let's put a text center here. Text center. Alright, so this will be our sign up form. Alright, yep. So this is a sign up form. So we'll duplicate this for the login, right? I would say login.php, right? So when we do that, we have this, but in this case, we're going to have this active. Got this active. We're pasting this here, and then we're going to have here to sign in. Sign into just log into your account. Log into your account. Okay, and then we just need email and password for the login, right? Email and your password. So when you click login, you click sign up, you click home. So that's basically that. So let's begin to look at something. Before we commence, we need our database to work with, right? So from the previous MySQL video, we have this back-end tutorial database, right? And we have this already here. But we're actually going to do something. We're going to create a new database, right? We're going to create a new table because we're not going to be working with this. So let me just come here, and then I just delete this table. Drop. Yes. So let's just enter and create a new table. So as this database is selected, right? So I will create table user. So we're going to have two tables basically. I'm going to have the users table that stores the users information when they create an account, and I'm going to have a books table that actually store the books you're entering, and is linked. Each book is linked to a user, right? So create table users, right? And then the ID was of type integer, right? Please watch the MySQL video for have an understanding of this. And then integer, and it's going to auto increment, and is the primary key. We equally have the first name, and it's going to be of type varchar, and let's put 30, and we'll say not null. So we'll duplicate the same thing for last name. So last name, and then we'll have the same thing for email, but in this case the length is going to be 255, and then we put email, and we want to make sure it's unique, right? Unique to each user's unique. All right, and then we're going to have created ads, and it's going to be of type date. So date is a way of storing dates, in the following format like this: the year, the month, and the day, right? So basically something like that. So dates, right? I would say not null. right? So that's that. So when we click on create, it has created a table. So we're going to create another table. I copied that code there to make things easier, and we want to create another table, and we call it books for the books table. So but in this case, the books is going to have a title. So I'm going to store title of the book. So let's just give it 100, and it's going to have an author. Let's say title 255. Author 100, and we say now we have to have a way to link each book to a user, and we can say user ID. So this user ID now is going to be the ID of the user. So whenever it is a book has been inserted, right, the user that inserted it, the ID of that user is going to be stored here, right, for the user. So that's the when PHP is accessing it, it knows that okay, these books, so that we can access the books that belongs to a particular user, and then we can add books and put that to user, so that in summary, somebody will not be able to have access to another person's books, right? It's only your books you'll be able to have access to. And then we have it's going to be of type integer, and it's not null. And we have date, right, for when the book was actually created. So we look at this title, author, and then we say we create. So once that has been done, you see we have the books there, and then we have the users, right? So it's time for us to get started on some coding, right? So how can somebody create a new account? So first things first, if somebody wants to create a new account, they will come to the sign up, right? So you can create an account here, right? You put in your details, and this users table, we forgot to include password. So we're actually going to include the password for the users, right? Because each user is actually supposed to have a password. Alright, so let's just quickly do that. Let's just do that quickly. So we're going to use a particular code to alter that table, because that particular column password is not actually there right now. So we want the password to come after the email, right? So how do we do that, right? We select that users, and then we come here. I will enter alter table, the name of the table, users, and we're going to add column, right? And then we specify the column name. So the column name we actually want to add is password, right? And we'd say after, I want it to be after the email column. So we'll say after email, right? And we are supposed to put the data type, right? So we'll put data type varchar, and it's going to be 255, right? After email, after the email column, and then let's run that. So you can see, we click here, we can see that the password column has actually been added, right? So we can see that here, right? So because people will have to put their password. So for us to get started, let's quickly look at the register page first, because somebody needs to create an account, right? So before somebody can do anything, there has to be a way. There has to be form here. We put form, right? And we do this. Put all of this inside the form tab. So the form actually has to submit to somewhere, right? So when somebody fills their details and clicks submit, it's supposed to submit somewhere, right? So that's what the form is supposed to do. So we will say method first. We're going to use the post method to submit the form, and then we would say action. We're going to say, hey, I want it to actually come submit to this page, right? I want it to submit to this page. So with this, you can see that will handle that. So when somebody clicks submit, it's going to submit to this page. So let's quickly begin to add some PHP, right? So for us to actually run the logic for the register, first things first, we need to do is we need to first check if somebody actually submitted the form, right? And how do we do that? Alright, so we basically have to check, right? we have to check if a form was submitted. How do we do that? I want to write the PHP code at the top. So we're going to use something called, we're going to use a kind of like variable that we can use to check, okay, what was done just now. Was the form submitted through, post request? And if we're doing that, we just say if, right? If a user submitted a form, which is server. So this is a PHP variable that exists that we can use to check if a form was submitted, right? Through it has several elements that we can check. We have access to. So if server request method, right? If request method is post, right? Then we should create an account. And I'll put this comment here. If form was submitted, right? So if the form was submitted, because we put here post, right? What we were trying to say is essentially if this register.php means it's going to call itself, right? So if a post request was done, right? Because there's get, there's post. Get is basically just used to retrieve stuff from the internet. Post is like to create stuff, right? So if a post request was done, then it should now get the details. But when we're getting the details of the user, there are basically some things we want to do, right? So first things first, we want to get the users, right, that has just been submitted. Okay, so we're going to say this is what we're going to do. But before we do that, we have to do some validations. We want to check, right? I want to check basic stuff. We say let's first check if the because some variable, all these variables are required, the first name and last name. So if it sets post, right? So if the first name was submitted, right, and the first name is not empty, right? If the first name is not empty, right, post first name, then we can work with data, right? Okay, sorry, so about this, we can now look at what we want to do with the first name data, right? So but before we do that, we have to do two things there. So we're going to talk about two security checks you have to do when you're running database applications, right? PHP and MySQL. There's something called XSS attacks, and there's something called SQL injection, right? So XSS attack, right, there is a you need to prevent against those things, right? So how do we prevent against it, right? This is how we can do it. So in this case, I'll create a variable, right? And this is how we can actually do that. So this first name is going to store that, but we say HTML special character. So this is basically going to prevent XSS attacks on your website, right? With this, it's a basic feature that you can use to prevent XSS attacks on your website. And then, but now that we've done this, there's another particular type of attack we want to prevent against, right? And that is SQL injection. So we're going to do all of that, and for us to be able to do that, we need to actually, there's a particular method I want to use that will require us, but before we can do that, we need to actually connect to the database. So for us to connect to the database, here's what we're going to do, right? Once a form has been submitted, we'll write a code to connect to database, right? So that we can use that to prevent against SQL injections, right, to database, right? So basically, we need to connect to the database, right, to solve this issue. So XSS attacks, right, the kind of attacks where I'm trying to put it break it down as basic as possible. It's a kind of attack where somebody kind of inserts code into a website, like that could redirect. Let's say, for instance, could insert code into a website that could redirect somebody to another website, right? So and things like that. So that's one of the basic ways to explain that. And then SQL injection is like somebody trying to write SQL code in the form and submitting, which could alter or make changes to your database, and it's something you don't really want. So you have to like tackle all of that, right? So this kind of handles that first we talked about. So we're going to talk about this. So we're going to handle the second one. So we want to connect to the database, right? And how do we connect to the database, right? We connect to the database by using a particular statement, and then this is how it works. So there are two ways. You can use PDU or you can use what's it called? I keep forgetting the name of this thing. We can use PDU or we can use MySQL, but I want to use MySQL. So let's just say con, create a variable to store the connection, and this is to connect the PHP application to the MySQL application. So we'll say new MySQLi, right? And we'll say we specify. So in this case, we have localhost, right? So that's the host name, and then we specify the user. Default is root, and then in this case it doesn't have a password, right? But you can set a password, and if it's a live application, it's going to have but the database is going to have a username, password. So those things should be kept to as discreet as possible. And then the database we're trying to connect to is that backend class database from the previous view, backend tutorial, right? So with this connects to the database, and we'll check to ensure the connection was successful. So if connection, right, was successful, like if you had any error, right, then we just die the script to show the users that, hey, there was a connection error, right? Connection failed, right? Let's just use connection failed, and then we can decide to, for the sake of this video, let's just append the connection error, right? For the sake of this tutorial, I'll use something called get message, right? To do that. So that will handle that. So how does that relate to what we are actually trying to do, right? So in this first name, we want to escape what the user imputed, right? So we would say con, right? MySQLi, real escape string, right? So this handles that, and we'll say first name. So that would handle that particular, right? So that's taking care of that, right? So that is if the first name has been submitted. So, but what if the person didn't supply the first name? We're supposed to have an else that would say notify users to supply it, right? So how do we do that? We want to create a variable here. So we're going to create a variable here. We're going to say and we'll call this variable let's just say all input let's just call it all input supplied, right? So it's going to be a boolean, and on load is going to be false. So this is going to set to true if all the data supplied was supplied and there was no issues at all with them, right? They were imputed the way we wanted it, the first name and everything was supplied and imputed the way we wanted it. So I'm going to try and keep it as basic as possible. The validation, you actually have to validate data, right? When you're working with backend, you need to validate data the person is supplying. So you need to ensure that if you want the person to supply the first name, the person supplies it. If you want the person to supply the email, you check the email to ensure that the email is actually like looks like an email address, not just any random thing the person entered. So, but I'll try and keep it as basic as possible, but I'm still going to try and explain to you what validation is all about. So you have to validate the data, right? So in this case, we're saying that if the person supplied the first name, let it store the first name as this, do the XSS attack checking, do the SQL injection prevention. Then if it wasn't supplied, let it notify the user that it wasn't supplied. So all input supplied will be equal to false still, in the sense that all input supplied will only be true once if it checks every single thing, both the first name, both the last name, and everything was supplied the way we wanted it, then it's going to make it true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. Then we're going to have a check here that checks to say, oh, if the person didn't supply the first name, right? If all input supplied is false and the person actually entered the first name, right? Then we know what to say. But if the person didn't even enter the first name, right? So let's just say we'll check it to say, okay, if there's a first name supplied, right, and that thing is false, then that means the person didn't supply it properly, and then we show the errors, right? Okay, so let's see. These handles for first name, right? This actually handles for first name, and then this handles for first name, and then let's actually have okay, let's have another variable that says is form submitted. So once this actually happens, right, once this happens, this automatically becomes true, means form was submitted, right? Form was submitted. Okay, so this is going to set to true once the form is submitted, right? All right, so and if the form is not submitted, right, it's just going to set to false, right? It's form submitted, and let's just say false, right? All right, so let's look at this. So if the first name is supplied, right, we set here to true, right, meaning that okay, it's good to go, you can proceed, right? So we'll duplicate it for the last name, because last name and first name are similar. So there's last name, and then there's last name here, right? And here would have last name, right? And then here will be last name, and then here will be last name, and then here will be last name, right? So even if this is true, if the person supplied the last name and it's not empty, if the first name and it's not empty, if the person didn't supply the last name, automatically it becomes false, right? So another thing we need to look at now is the password. So we need to check, okay, did the person actually supply the password, right? So we'll copy all of this. Okay, we'll copy all of this, and let's look at this. So we copy this and we say password, right? Password. So in general practice in programming, you need to make sure that your database are as secure as possible. So when it comes to passwords, right, in this case, when somebody enters his password, it's not going to store it as plain text as we saw before, where you would have the user and you see the first name, right? We're going to encrypt it so that it's not going to show as plain text, right? So that nobody can actually see the person's password. You know, you have to keep your database and system as secure as possible, right? So in this case, if the person supplied a password and it's not empty, right? So we actually have to now encrypt the password. But before we actually encrypt the password, let's verify email. So we're just going to leave this code, and we're going to copy this, right, for email. So let's look at email. So if the person supplied email and the email is not empty, right, we need to check. We need to actually check to ensure that the email supplied, right, the email supplied is like an actual email that we want to work with. How do we do that, right? So the person entered an actual email. So we can use something called filter variable, right? If we say filter var, right, and it's a PHP function that can help us to like check if an email is actually like kind of like an email, right? So we would say we have to get the email first. So we would say email, right, email equal to, right, post email, right? So we would say email in this case, and then what are we checking it against? We're actually checking it against, so we'd say email, we'd say filter validate email, right? So basically what this does is it checks if the email supplied valid, like is it an actual email address? That does it look like an actual email address with the username, then the @, then the domain, That's what we do. So if it's actually that kind of thing, right? Then we actually have to do what? We have to filter it, right? We have to run those things we want to run. So we'll now say email, right? Email equal to email, and we'd say email, right? Yeah, we'd say email, right? I would say all values supplied, make it true. All right. So if the person didn't supply an actual email address, we would say else. All a valid email address, we would say else all values supplied to false. So that means it's false, right? All supplies were not done and the way we wanted it, right? So the last thing is the password. So we're actually going to look at the password and we're going to encrypt it, right? So now encrypting password, how do we do that? We're going to use something called bcrypt to actually encrypt the password, right? So we're going to first do something. Let us we'll say password, right? Let's say password, remove all of that, and we'll say password, right? Password. So whatever the person supplied as a password, we're going to do something now. We're going to hash it, right? So we're going to use bscript to hash it. How do we do that? So we're going to create a new hashed password. This is the password we're going to store. I would say password equal to password hash, right? And we supply the password we want to hash, which is this password supplied, and we say we want it to be using bcrypt, right? Password bcrypt. So we're using bcrypt to hash that particular password, right? And in this case, all input supplied becomes true, right? All input supplied becomes true. So once we have all input supplied, we want to create the account. Now, if by the end of the entire check, right, all input supplied is equal to true, then it should create the account, right? Then we want it to actually create the account. And how do we do this, right? So so how do we create the account, right? So we are going to say this is how we're going to create the account now. So we'll create the SQL statement. So we'll say SQL, right? And please, we touch all of this in my SQL video. Please, you can go and watch that and have an understanding of what it's all about. So we're going to say insert into users, right? So we're inserting the first name, last name, email, and password, values, right? What values are we inserting? We are inserting, we're going to insert first name, and I'm going to copy this for last name, email, first name, just put this new line here, last name, email, right, and password, right? So we're going to put all of these, and then we're going to put all of these, and once we've done that, we close this and we end it here, right? Sorry about that. Oh, we already have that ended here. So this will be the SQL statement that is going to be run, right? Almost as if we're typing it in the commands there. So we're going to say the connection we have that connects to the database, and we're going to put query, right? So query SQL, right? So it's to execute the query, right? So this execute the query, right? And we would say this. So when you insert a new record, it's going to return affected rows. So if the affected rows is 1, that means one record was inserted, right? So we know that it was actually inserted. Then we would say affected rows. We're going to get the number of rows that were affected, that were inserted, right? I would say affected rows, right? Then we now say if affected rows is greater than 0, that means an account was created, right? So in this case, let it just print okay, I have this here. Okay, so I want that to display, I will want that to actually display here, right? Just after this create account. So let's do something. Let's create a variable here and say any errors, right? And here is false, right? So any errors, we say it as false. Now if the form is submitted, so any errors, if there is no form submitted, any errors will be false, right? So if affected rows is greater than 0, then we would say any errors equal to false still. Else, right, any errors equal to true. So how do we check all of that here, right? So if we come down to this place, first things first, where the error is going to display, right? So I want that here. So I would use PHP, and I would say PHP, I would say if, right? So you can see here, I already have these any errors here. So regardless of if a form is submitted or not, any errors would be what? False, right? So if any errors is equal to true, if it has any errors, right? So I want it to just echo, right, a div and say class equal to alert danger, right? And then we say in this case we're just going to say we'll just put what do I write now? Let's just say there was an error in creating your account, right? We put a slash and then we end it, right? So this handles that. So if there's any errors, it's going to show here. Now coming to this place, right, I'm going to do something. Let me bring this down here, right? Like that. No. So let's bring this down here. So there's something I want to do, right? When the form is submitted, right, if there was any error at all, the initial value that you had should be stored here. So now I'm going to say value is equal to, right, I'll say PHP if there's a variable we have here, right, if is form submitted is equal to true, that means if a form was submitted, right, is equal to true, right, and okay, if form was submitted is equal to true, right, and then okay, if a form was submitted is equal to true, right, and we check, so if that form was submitted, that means there is actually going to be the first name variable, right? So if and if empty post, right, first name, right? So basically what I'm saying is if is form submitted is true and so if a form was submitted and the first name is actually empty, right? That is, the first name is empty. Then what do we want? We want it to, okay, and the first name is not empty, right? Oh no, if the form is submitted is true, right? If form submitted is true, right, then just echo the first name. Post, right? Post first name, right? So that will be the value. So whenever a form is submitted, the previous value of the first name is what is going to be there. So we're going to check for errors, right? If there's an error, and let's look at something. Let's show an error message here for a case where the form was not submitted, like the first name wasn't supplied. So let's do a check here. So we'd say PHP if let's see, we have all inputs supplied false. So now we'd say if all inputs if is form submitted, right, is equal to true, right? So we check if the form submitted is true. Now that means if a form was submitted. Now if empty post first name, right? So if the first name was not supplied, it should actually echo a div, right, with an error message saying alert, danger. I believe that is it, right? Please enter your first name. Then we put this, right, and then we close that. Okay, so basically this checks to ensure, okay, if the form was submitted, right, now it checks if the first name is empty, right? If there was no first name supplied, it tells you to please enter the first name, right? So I'm just going to copy this for last name, right? And then we say last name, we put this here, do this here, do this here, and we do this here, and we look at this, and we say last name over here, right? Last name, right? And then we're going to copy all of this, and then we're just going to paste it here, right? So we're going to say last name, right? So we're going to do something now. Let's copy this and let's let us do this for email here. So you say email, please enter your email, right? And then, but if it's not empty, right, so we check if actually is not empty. We actually check if a valid email address was supplied. So we're going to use this, right, and it does the same thing. So basically what this says is, so you know, this will only run. So we look at this. So basically this code says, hey, if this email is valid, run this. So but if we put this not sign, means hey, if the email is not valid, then run what is down here. So we just want to show an error saying please enter a valid email address, right? So we put email address here, and then we're going to copy all of this, right? And then we're going to paste it here, paste it here. Let's just arrange all of these, and then we say email here, right? So that does for that. And then password, right? For password, what do we have here? Okay, password should not be empty, right? So let's just copy this for password. So we just say we copy all of this here, and would say here, would say password, right? And we say please enter your password. All right, so let's do something else. Now, any errors, right? Okay, let's see if I have any errors there. Okay. So now we have this is formatted, right? So we check, right? Any errors is true. Now, if form submitted is equal to true, right? If a form was submitted and there were any errors, say do this, right? But then we'll do another check. If form submitted is equal to true and there were no errors, right? So in this place where they say any errors, right? Any errors is true, right? So in this case, it checks if a form was submitted, right, and there were no there were errors, right, through this. But if a form was submitted and there were no errors, just show your account has been successfully created. So your account has been successfully created, right? And then here we just change to success. So let's actually look at that running first in the browser. Let's see if that's working. All right, so I'll submit this. Something isn't right. So look at this. It's saying your account is successfully created. But you can see here it's saying please enter your first name, enter your last name, and here it's saying undefined array this. So let's first go to line undefined array key. Let's first go to line 191 undefined array key undefined array key. All right, so let's see. All right, we didn't put this name email here. Name equal to email, and that sorts that out. So by the time we do that, okay, let's see. So I'm saying your account is successfully created. All right, you didn't create the account, so we fixed all of that up. So let's start with this undefined array key, input name, ID, undefined array key, email, name, type, ID. All right, so let's just refresh this and let's see. Oh, that takes care of that. So this account successfully created. Let's look at it here. Okay, so if form submitted and any errors, right? Submitted. All right, so okay, let's look at this. Is form submitted true and any errors false? Okay, so we'll check, right? Let's do something. Let's check for affected rows. So if affected rows is greater than 0, right, then basically it does this. So let's see if that solves that issue. Undefined variable affected rows. Okay, affected rows. Oh, we already have these all input supplied, right? So instead, let's use this, and then we say all input supplied equal to true, right? And then let's see, that should take care of that. All right, so that takes care of that, right? So we have all of these. So you can see that the account, no account was created. So let's actually enter something, right? So let's say John. Let's enter John. Let's enter do, and let's just say John at test.test, right? And then let's just enter a password. Let's see what happens. Now it's complaining of saying please enter your password. So there's an issue somewhere. Let's look at the password place, right? So if it said password and password is not empty, all inputs supplied false, right? If it said password and password is not empty, all inputs supplied true. And let's look at the password place. Is form submitted? Then it's supposed to check if empty password. Oh, we didn't put name here. Name equal to password. So let's do that. And if we look at this, you can see, let's see, still not created, right? So let's refresh the page and let's try that again. So let's see John, and we say do, and we say John at test.test, and we say password, right? And let's hit submit. Your account has been successfully created. So let's click here and let's look at users. The password, right? The password is not stored in plain text, and I forgot to add this created at, right? Sorry about that. So the password is stored in plain text. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to encrypt it, right? So let's look at the encrypt part. We're supposed to supply the hashed password. So hashed password, and the created at, right? So we're supposed to create a created at variable. So say created at, and we can use the date function of PHP. So basically what this does, when I supply this, right, it's going to get the current date and store it as those. So let's assume something, you will see something like this. Let's say 11 and 12, right? So this would be a kind of like dates that will say, okay, this is 2024 November, 12th of November 2024, something of that kind of nature, right? And we would say created at, and then we'll store the created at value here. We'll say created at, let's change this to created at, and we'll say created at, right? So I'm just going to delete this because we're using that. So let us come back here, right, and let us actually refresh this, and then we say John at test.test, and then we put all of this. Now look at this, it's complaining you have an error. You have an error in your corresponds to this near this line 73. Oh, sorry about that, we didn't put that here. So when we come back here, we can all see that it has been created successfully, and you can see that the password is encrypted. So this is how you should basically be storing passwords on your in your application, and you can see the user has been successfully created. So basically, when we create an account, what we want is for it to redirect us, for it to redirect us to the home page of the user, and then you will see something like the home, add book, and you will see let's say home, view books, add book, and you would say log out or something like that, right? But before we do all of that, I want us to look at the login page, and from there then we can access that, right? So how do we do that? Let's go to the login. So this is the login, and this is what we have for the login, right? So this is what we have for the login, and we want to be able to check. So we're going to copy a lot of code from here because it has similarities here. We're going to copy a lot of code. So we're going to be doing a lot of copying from here. right? So basically, we want to check the same thing. We only want to log somebody in if the person submitted a request, right? So I will copy from here, right, down here. Let's copy everything here and we'll come to login, right? And then, so basically, it's very similar, but there are differences. If the person submitted the form to login, right, we have this. Then we have to connect to the database. Then we check, right? We ensure the person supplied. In this case, we're only going to check for email and password because the person is not creating an account, right? So we're going to delete everything for email, for first name, last name. So we're going to only have email and we're only going to have password, right? So, but in this case, we're not going to be hashing the password because we're trying to check if the account exists, right? So what are we doing in this case? This is not necessary because we're not trying to create a new account, but the person supplied his password and we're trying to check if that account actually exists, right? So how do we actually do that? We look at the code. Remember, is the bcrypt technology that we actually use to do all of that, right? So we have to verify. When you're creating an account, you are supplying your details, and it's going to hash your password and store it. But in this case, the password is hashed, so we can't just do a simple like, okay, if supplied password, right, is equal to the password in database. No, we actually have to check because it was actually encrypted, right? So what are we going to do? First things first, we are going to check if the account exists, right? So how do we do that? Once this email has been supplied, right, and we validated that the email is actually true, right, not an empty email was supplied and it's on all of that. So we're going to do something next. We would say, right, let's copy this SQL statement here. So we're going to copy this and we are going to alright, so we're actually going to check what the person supplied. So we'll first ensure, right, did the person actually supply email? Yes. Is it a valid email? Yes. Did the person supply the password? Yes. Right. So once all of that has been done, we check if the person actually supplied everything and everything is okay, right? So we are going to first retrieve the user's information, right, from the database. And instead of having all this write up here, here's what we're going to write up. We're going to say select staff from users, right, where select staff from users where, right, email is equal to, right? So we're going to first retrieve the email of the person, of the user, right? We're going to first retrieve the details of the user using the email that the person supplied. So when we do that, right, this results here, this query, right, we're going to have a variable and we're going to create a variable and let's say results, right? So the result from that is going to store in this. Then in this case, instead of having affected rows, we're going to check the number of rows that have been supplied, right? So we'll say num rows, right, will become equal to, right, result num rows. That's what is going to now become equal to. So it's going to store the number of rows. So if the number of rows, that means if the number of rows is greater than 0, an account with that email actually exists. So if it actually exists, no errors, we're still going to have that there, yes. But we're going to check something first. We're going to say if it actually exists, if an account with that email actually exists. Now we want to check the password to ensure that that person's password is there. But we want to store the user first. So we'll say user is equal to result fetch assoc. And then fetch assoc is actually a way of retrieving information from the database as an array, right? So we're going to access user details as an array. Now I'm going to check the password, and I'm going to say if password verify, right? So this is how we can check a password supplied by user against a hash password in database. If password verify, right, and we supply the supplied password, which is all of this, right, this, and then we checked the hashed password in the database, right, I would say password, right? So if this password verifies specified, now this checks, okay, if the password the user supplied, right, matches the password in the database that is hashed, right, so that means that is the person's account, right? That's the person's account. So let's so in this case, let's just echo, right? Let's just echo account exists, right? Then we would say any else. No, we'll say else echo account not found. So what are we trying to do, right? I would say any errors here, we say true, and then in this case accounts exist, we would say false. And then we're going to copy this code from register. So let's copy for the email. We're going to copy this, right, and we're going to put it here. So password will say name equals to password, and here we say name equal to email, right? Let's do this. Let's do it like this, right? So this, just like in the other section, right, is to check to ensure that, okay, if the form was submitted, then let's just put the email here, right? Put the email here, right? And then let's come back here, and then we would say password, right? And here we'll just simply say we'll say email true, right? So you should enter your email address, right? But in this case, just leave the valid email address there, right? And then for the password, we're going to copy this password code down here so that it shows the error message for the password, and then we're going to put this here, right? So that takes care of that. So essentially what is happening, then when it comes to this part, now I'm going to copy this so that we can see, and then we put that here after this. So so we'll just say accounts not found, right? And then let's say you have successfully logged in, right? So let's look at what we have here. We come to login, right? And we put I just put any random test, and we'll put password. Oh, forgot to do something on this form here. We're supposed to submit all of this is supposed to go inside the form, right? So all this write up here, all this write up is supposed to go inside a form. So we'll put a form here, and we'll say method, we'll say post, and we'll say action. What action are we going to put? Login.php to submit to this particular page, right? Then we close that there. So put down here, and we'll say form. So when we do that, g at test, then so now you can see that the account is not found. So let's actually put an account that exists, right? So let me just copy this email, right? And then I paste this here and I do this. So I'm successfully logged in, right? But here is one of the catchy thing. If we refresh this page, right, I'm supposed to be logged in, right? And it's supposed to redirect me to a page. So I'm supposed to be able to store the person's login information in a place so that once you log in, it redirects you, right, to the home page. So that's what we're going to look into right now. So for us to do that now, let's first design the login. Let's first design the home page that people see when they log in, right? And then I'm going to create a folder inside this place. I'm going to create users, and inside that users folder, I'm going to create an index.php, right? So in this, we're going to still copy what we have here. We're going to copy it, or we're going to paste it here. But in this case, we're going to make a few amends because this file is inside this folder. So we're going to put a dot, right, to specify that, hey, we'll go to the folder outside here and then search for it. Same applies to this. We'll put a dot, right? I'll put a dot here. I'll put a dot here. Right, so we do that, and that takes care of that. So this is what people will see when they log in, right? So in this case, we're going to put the person's name here, right? And then take this out. So when the person is here, so that the person can know that he's logged in. And in this case, instead of login, we're going to have logout. So we'll use logout, right? And then instead of this home, we have home. We're going to have add book, right? So here would be add book.php, and then let's put this, and then this. All right. Add book. We're going to have add book here, right? And we're going to have logout, right? And we're going to have view books. So view books, right? So we'll say view books, right? I would say view books, right? So with this being done, we have this, and then we look at all of this. So when the person, for us to be able to show the person's name here, we're going to put a library, let's just say users, so that it be different. So when the person logs, we want the person's name to be here. So we have to first retrieve the person's name, but we have to store it, right? Because if we don't store the person's details that he's logged in, we won't be able to know who is logged in and who is not logged in, right? So when we come to this particular place, how do we do that? There's something called session variables and cookies. So we're going to use cookies, right? So instead of echoing account not found and all that stuff, right? So we'll just found. So when an account actually exists, right, what should it do? It should store the person's details, right? The person's ID. It's going to store the person's ID in a variable that we save for a period, for a day. So the person is going to be logged in for a day. Then it's going to redirect the person, right, to that home page. And that home page is going to show the person's name to show that he's logged in. Okay, so how do we do that? There's something called cookies, right? So we can use cookie. We say cookie name, right? And let's set the cookie name to user ID, right? And we say cookie value, right? So the cookie value is going to be the currently user logged in ID, right? To show that somebody is logged in. And then we're going to set time is going to expire. So we say expire time, right? Let's say expire time equals to. Now time is used to get the current time of the computer, right? and then when we set the current time of the host, now if I add this value, right, I say times 1, and I'm going to explain what I just did now. So basically this is what this means, right? So 86400 seconds is actually equal to 1 day, right? So what that means is this, if I put 2 here, it means I want to last for 2 days, 3 days. So the current time, I want you to add 1 day. There are 86,400 seconds in a day to the current time, so that the person will be logged in for 1 day, right? Then when after 1 day, the person, whoever it has to be logging again, right? So then we set the cookie, right? So we use there's a function that we can use, right? Set cookie, and then when we use set cookie, we specify the cookie name, right? And we specify the cookie value, right? And then we specify the time it's bound to expire, right? And then this particular place we're about to set specifies that, hey, this cookie is going to be set across the entire website, right? So when we do this, then we have to redirect to the page we want, right? So we're going to use header. Header is something we can use to redirect, and we say location, right? And it's going to redirect to users/index.php. This is where it's going to redirect to, right? So basically, when somebody logs in, this is where it's going to redirect the person to, right? So instead of showing you have currently logged in here, right, it's not going to show that. So we won't even have any need for this anymore, because it's never going to show that. But I'm just going to comment it out here, right? So because if the person is logged in, it's not going to even show up. They're just going to redirect the person to this place, right? So I'm going to copy this code and do it for the register too. When somebody creates an account, right, there won't be need for this anymore. So when someone creates an account, right, what should it do? It should yes, set the cookie here and redirect the person, right? Redirect the person to the page, right? But in this case, how do we get the because we actually need the users we need the users user ID, right? So how do we get the user ID that we're going to supply there as the ID that is going to store, right? So here's how we're going to do it. So we're going to do that by checking something, right? So we're going to use this connection has a property, right, that we can actually use to access the newly created ID. How do we do that, right? So in this case here, you know, in the login, the user ID was gotten from there, but in this case, we're going to use con and we'd say insert ID. So this gives us the newly create ID, the ID of the newly created user, right? So let's go to the login, come to eLibrary, and we click on login, right? Let's put login. Let's get this login here. Alright, I will put it here. I'll put a password. Now you can see it has directed to this place, and we can see all of this here, right? So the person is currently logged in, but we need to retrieve the person's name, right? So let's retrieve the person's name. So we come to index, right? We come to users index, right? And we happen to retrieve the person's name. So for us to retrieve the person's name, right, we're going to use something called cookie, right? So we're going to copy a lot of code from here, right? We're going to copy a lot of code from here. So how do we do that? Let's look at this login. We copy from here down, and we come to this index, and we come down here and we paste. But in this case, nobody's submitting any form, so we're not going to do that. We don't need all this to check, right? Because no form is submitted. So instead of checking for a form, what we're actually checking for is we're going to check if any cookie was supplied, right? So if user is logged in, right? So So we're not going to be using this. We're going to check if that cookie exists. So we'd say if is set, right, cookie, right? So we'll call that cookie name, which is the user ID. If the user actually exists, right? So we're going to get that user ID. So we'll say user ID is equal to cookie cookie user ID, right? Cookie user ID, right? And this connection is here. So this is the you currently logged in user, details. So what's the next thing? We actually need to retrieve the user's information, right? So in this case, we're only going to say here is going to be where ID is equal to user ID, right? And when we've done that, right? And when we've done that, we won't be needing this because we're not setting any cookies, right? And we won't be needing this. So if the accounts, we won't be needing this here, right? So we're not going to be needing from here down to here because we're not submitting any form, right? So we're going to remove that, and this is all we're going to need, right? And remove this. So if there is, this part is actually meant for those who are logged in. So what are we going to do, right? So if somebody is actually not logged in, right, it should redirect the person to the login page, which is exactly what we're going to do here. So we'll say users, right? I would say login.php, right? So it's going to redirect the person to the login page if the person is actually not logged in, right? Because the login page is out here, it's not in the same folder out it. Now, if the account is not actually found, right? In this case here, if he tries to get the user, right, and that account was not found, what should he do? He should still redirect the person back to the page to log in, right? That's what he should do exactly there. And then from with this now we can actually get the user's name. We'll say echo, right? Echo, and we'll say user, and we'll say user, and we'll say ID, right? So when we do that, so you can see, sorry, not ID, let's say first name. So when we do that, you can see that it shows that the person is actually logged in, right? That's how I can do that. So if we want to log out, we have to come to the logout form. So we're going to create a PHP file. We're going to call it logout.php. So what is going to be inside logout.php? We're actually going to log out the user here, right? So we'll write our PHP code, PHP, and we'll do this. And we'll say if, right, is set cookie, right, we'll say user ID, right? So we are now, if you want to clear a cookie, we have to delete the logged in user's information ID. So if we want to do that, is you use the same set cookie, but we're going to set a time that is in the past, right? So we'll say set cookie, and we'll say the user ID is the cookie name we're trying to reset, right? And then we're going to give it a value of this, and then we're going to set a time that is in the past, right? So we'll set it, let's use 3600 seconds, and we'll say across the entire site, right? So set it to expire an hour ago, right? And then when you do that, redirect back to the home page, right? Redirect back to the page to log in. So we'll say header and location, right? In this case, we're actually going to put this header and location. I would say login.php, right? Then we'll say exit. So that's how we would actually do that here, right? And I keep forgetting this exit stuff here. So wherever we have this, we'll say exit, and register would say exit, right? So now let's look at this. When we click logout, you can see we can now log in, right? So we put that same email again, right? Then we come here, we put it, and we see. So you can see that, right? You can actually do that. So when you click on, for now, when you click on view books, right, it's supposed to show you the books that the user currently has. Okay, so for now there are no books, so it's supposed to show. This is how it should look. Let's click on let's create a new file here. We'll call it viewbooks.php, right? So let's come to this index and let's copy all the code here. Let's come to view books. So they work the same way, right? So but the difference here is that this what will be active will be view books. Active will be view books, and we wouldn't have this here. What we would have is let's put let's say just put div class called md4, right? Let's say column d2, column d2, right? So to view the books. So for us to actually view the books, right, so we're going to work on something. This is not going to be here. We're going to change this to 8, right? And then we're going to move this text center, right? And then we get rid of all of this. Okay, so for us to view the books, we need to get the user's books, right? So how do we get the user's books? Okay, so for us to get the user's books, we'll come we'll have this, right? So we're not just selecting the users, right? So in this case now, if the user actually exists, right, then it should proceed, otherwise let the person go and log in. So if the user exists, that is to get the user, right? So we now get the books, we get users books, and then what do we say? We say we're going to write so we would say SQL. We have to write the SQL to get the books. SQL equal to select star from books where user ID is equal to the user ID, right? So we're trying to fetch only the user's books, right? We are going to run it. So say result is equal to con, right? And say query, and say SQL, right? So that is going to execute it. I would say num rows, right, to ensure that the user has books, right? So we would say result dot num rows. So that is to find out the number of books the user actually has, right? So if the user actually has books, right? So if the user has uploaded books before, right? So we want to retrieve the books. So what are we going to do in this case, right? Now we're going to use a while loop. So we'll say while, right, row is equal to the result. So we're going to store. This is basically what we are doing here. When we use fetch assoc, right? When you use fetch assoc, what are we saying? So the result, right, this to get these books, right? We want to get it, but we want to store it in a row, right? So each of those books, like this getting, we want to store them in a row, and we want to actually store the books as an array so that we can look through the array. So we create a books array, right? And we say equal to row. So each, of that is going to get stored there, right? That's basically what that is. So when we come down to this place, we check. Now we can check here. We can say PHP, right? And we can say if we can actually use that there and say count the books, right? So if count books greater than 0. So this will be where this will show the books, right? So here will show books, else echo, right? And then let's put div class alert danger, or info. Let's use info danger, you currently have no books, right? And then put a div to end it, right? So you currently have no books. Okay, so so let's see what that looks like. Click view books, undefined variable books online. This is 91. Find variable books. All right. Okay. If number is greater than 0, else we would say else books should be equal to an empty array, right? Because nothing was found here. So you can see that. So because he currently has no books, he's saying you currently have no books, right? So let's just do something. Let's say text center, and let's put it strong, right? Let's put it strong here. Strong. All right. So you currently have no books, right? So when you click on add book, it's going to bring up the form to actually add a book. So we're going to copy the register page, right? Because they have a lot of like similar code. We'll copy the register page, and we'll make a few tweaks to it, right? To show some differences, right? So let's look at these books, right? So we'll look at books. All right. So let's go to the add book and let's create an add book page. So now we'll click on the register page, we copy all of this, and we're going to create an add book here. So we'll say add book.php, right? I'm going to paste it in here. So in this case, right, obviously we're going to check two things. We're going to check if the person is logged in, if there's an account, before you even start checking if the person submitted a book, right? So let's start making the changes one by one first. Before make the changes above, for the book, what do we need? We need the title of the book, and we need the author of the book. That's basically all we need. Author, right? So this email goes down. Email and password, they're going out, because that's all we need, right? And then what do we have here? Here is going to be add book.php, right? So here is going to be title, and here would be title, and here would be, please enter the title of the book, and here would be author, and here would be author, here would be author, and then here would be let's just say John Doe, right? Author, please enter the author of the book, right? So that goes. And what next? What we have first name here, we would say title. When we have last name here, we would say author, right? And then all right, so there was an error in saving the book. I just say in creating the book, right? So we'll say add a book, right? Okay, and then for here we're going to copy what we have for index. We're going to look at all of this here, down here. I'm going to copy it, and we're going to paste it for add book, and we paste it here. Okay. Alright, so this goes like this. Alright, but the active page now is actually going to be, instead of here, it's going to be here. Right? And then up here, right, we're only going to have first name and last name. From email down, we don't need it. So password. Right? And once we've done that, first name, we're changing first name to title, first name to title, first name to title, 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 and then we're changing last name to author, and we're putting here 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 author, author. Alright, so it's set into books, author, no, title, author, title, author, created at, right? So we'll say title, we'll say author, and we're getting rid of all of this. But there's something we missed, right? So we missed user ID. So we'll say user ID, and then we're going to create that user ID in a bit. So we'll say user ID, right? So it's going to insert that into books, right? So if the books was successfully added, so it's going to redirect to view books, right? And then when it redirects to view books, it's going to take us back to the view books, and we're not setting any cookies, so we'll just get rid of all of this. Right? Good. So we have to check, right? So we're going to check if somebody is actually logged in, right? So we have to check this. So when we come here, we copy all of this. It comes add book, right? And then we say, so we come here, and then we say else, redirect back to the login page, right? So where is the login page? Redirect back to the login page. So if somebody is not logged in, redirect the person back to the login page, let the person log in, right? So that takes care of that. But we need to get the user ID. So the user ID would now be equal to underscore cookie user ID, right? What else again? User ID. I think basically that's it. All right. So, but there's one last thing. We want to set a message so that the users will actually know that the book was created successfully when they go to the view books page, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to use something called flash message, right? So we're going to use a flash message that will set if the user actually entered if a user actually successfully entered a book, we set a flash message, right? So how do we set the flash message? So to set a flash message that will only show, like a flash message, like a message that like shows once on the page there, you can use that to show message from another page. So how do we show that? Before we redirect to the next page, right? We're going to do something. So first things first, you have session start to start the session, right? We have session start, and then since we have session start there, that's to start the session. So yes, so this session start variable, this session start function is actually going to like initialize the, that you're going to create a session, and we'll do this. We'll use the session array that comes with PHP, and we'll set a success flash message. So it's going to show a message to the user that, hey, your book got added successfully, right? Flash message. And then this message is going to say, book added successfully, right? So it's going to do that, right? So when it does that, then you can redirect to the view books page. So when we go back to the view books page, right, we are actually supposed to be able to check like, hey, was any session, right, done, right? Was there any session that would say, okay, you can check and say, okay, was like maybe a message that says the book was created successfully or something like that, right? So how do we actually check for it? So we come back to the view books, right? And when we come back to the view books, we can do that above here. So we can say PHP if, right, if there is a session message, so I have is set, right? If is set session, right, error, no, success, right? So we're going to check if there is a success message, right? Success, flash message, right? We're going to show it to the user, okay? So we're going to say echo, and then we're going to use div, and we'll say class, and we'll say alert, success, right? And then we're going to output that message, right? We're going to now say we're going to output the message so that users can see the message. And we're going to say, let's copy this here, and we'll paste it here, and then we're going to close that place, right? And then this ends that, right? So if there is a session flash message, we're going to show that, and then we're going to show it to the user. Then after we've displayed it to the user, we are going to unset that flash message. So we'll say unset, right? And when we say unset, we say unset, and we say session, right? So we're going to unset that session flash message so that it's not to be stored in memory, okay? So and then we do this, right? So that basically is going to handle all of that, right? So let's see what it looks like, right? So let's click on add books, e-library, something is in right, add books, yep, going to specify this, going to specify this, going to specify this, going to specify this. Alright, so you can see that, right? So let's look at it. As you can see, there are currently no books here, so let's add a book and let's see how that goes. Let's just say book, say title is introduction to JavaScript, and we see the author, let's just say John Doe, and then we click submit. Okay, added successfully. Oh, view books, right? Because it's still within the same location, right? So let's first see, did the book get stored in the database? So we can see that the book got stored in database, right? So let's just do this, right? So the reason why it's not showing, let's add another booklet so that we can see the flash message: introduction to CSS. I will say John Doe. Let's click submit. So still not showing that flash message there. Success, flash message, book added successfully, and let's click on view books. Echo success flash message. Right, so view books, if it's set success flash message. Let's look at add book session. Alright, so let's look at that, and then let's see flash message. Alright, session success flash message, and then alright, alright, so I'm trying to figure out this thing, where is this error coming from, right? Oh, forgot the session start, right? So we'll say session starts, and then when we do that, you can see that book added successfully, right? So that has been taken care of, and then we should put this in the middle. So we'll say text center, we'll say strong, right? I would say strong. Alright, so you see it's a flash message, shows once and it goes, right? So that means it has been taken care of, but we need to show the books right now. So the books are currently not showing. And how can we show the books, right? So where do we intend showing the books? We intend showing the books here. So if the books actually exist, right? We're supposed to show the books. So if count rows, books, so let's show the books, but I want to use a table to show the books. So I'm going to output HTML, right? And I'm going to say table, right? Table, right? And I would say this, and I'll say echo table row, say this. So let's get rid of this, so that I just so we'd say table heading, right? And then we'll put serial no, and we close the th. We'll say table heading title, and we'll say table heading author, we'll say table heading created on, right? And we'll say table heading options. So basically, what are we trying to achieve, right? Basically, what are we trying to achieve? Forgot to end the table row. So these options, right, is basically going to be for the edit and delete functions, right? If you want to edit or you want to delete it. So let's continue, right? So let's begin to display the book. So we're going to use a for each, right, to display the book. So we're going to say for each books as book, right? And then we're going to say book title. Book title is equal to, right, book title, and then we do that for author, we do that for created at, right, and we do that for ID. So we say book title, book, author, and then we'd say created at. I'll say book created at, and here we would say ID. I'll say book ID. Right, so that's going to store every information of the book. Right, so now it's time for us to actually output this information that's been provided. Right, so let's quickly do that. So we're going to say I'm going to echo a table row. Right, so I'm going to echo a table row. It's a table data. Right, and we're going to say serial node. So the serial node, basically we'll just create a serial number variable here that basically stores as a serial number. I would say 1. Right, so serial number. Right, we store that, and we say table data, book title. We store table data, and we're going to store the book author. Just copy this, book author, and then created at, book created at, book author. Then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to have an options. Right, so for these options, what do we want? We want basically 2 links. One link is to edit a book, and one link is to delete a book. So let's use a div. Right, and we'll say create an A, and we'll say ref. Right, ref is going to be equal to edit book. Right, and then we're going to supply the book ID, book ID. So in the PHP video, we talked about this. Right, so what this means is we're essentially submitting the book ID. Right, so it's almost as if we're replicating submitting a form, and we're saying the book ID is going to be equal to the book ID. Right, as this, that's the book we want to actually edit. Then we have the edit, and then we'll have a, and then we'll have div. Right, so we have edit book, and we'll have the same for delete book. So it's a delete book, and we'd say delete. Right, so when we do all of that, right, and we're also going to end the table data, the table row. So this ends here, table row. Right, so we're also going to increment the serial number, so the number keeps going up. Right, so let's see what it looks like. Well, we can see this, the book is, you can see each of the books. Right, but let's look at something. We have this okay, so we're going to give it some styling using CSS. So just let's quickly style that. Okay, so let's give it some styling. Right, and then I'll come here, I'll just say style. Right, style, and then let's see, table. There's something also wrong here. I think I closed that table, did I? Let me see. I don't think I closed that table, did I? No, I didn't close the table. Table row, table row, table row, and then we say echo. No, not in the for each. Right, so at the end we're gonna have echo slash table. Right, alright, so this is to end the table here. So we have an opening table tag, and then we have this, and we have this, and then we have this. Right, so let's just give the table, let's style the table, and then we're styling the table. So let's just style the table quickly. So I want to give it some styling. Right, I want to style the table. give it some styling. So table tag element, I want to give it a width of 100%, right? And then I want it to have a border, let's say border collapse of collapse, right? And then I want the margin to be margin auto. I want this to be there, so let's see how that goes. All right, so that gives that okay. And then so with this, I say table table heading and then table data, right? So I'm just going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid black. So let's see how that looks. All right, so that looks good. It's beginning to have shape. And then let's see so table heading and then table data. I want to give it a padding of 8 pixel, right? And then on text align, and I want to be left. All right, so when we do that, all right, use this, and then table heading, right? I want to have a background color, right? And I'm going to use color this F2. I believe I have the color right. F2, right? I believe I have the color right, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, that was a mistake. All right. So that takes care of that. All right. So with this we have a proper looking table, right? So let's just this is what it looks like right now. So we can click on add book and we can click on view books and we can see our books. So what if we want to actually edit a book, right? So we can use this option to edit a book. So let's quickly look at edit book, right? So edit book is going to be similar to add book, but in the sense that you're supposed to be able to pull a book's details, right? So let's quickly look at that. So I'm going to duplicate I'm going to replicate this add book, and in this case here is going to be updates, right? And that's what's going to happen. And then here we have all of this, right? So it's basically still going to be the same thing, I believe. So let's copy this and then let's come here and then create not new folder, new file, edit book.php, and then we paste it. So in this case, right, we are actually going to retrieve the book ID, right? So we need the book's ID. So edit book, they're going to supply a book ID. So it first checks if the user is logged in. If the user is logged in, then it checks if it sets, right, requests book ID. So if there's a book ID, right, then we are going to run all of this. That's when we can now check if somebody actually submitted a book, because we have to first retrieve the book's information, right, before we can do anything. Or let's say let's remove all of this, right, and bring it out here. And then what we're going to basically do is, if there is no book ID, right, if there is no book ID, it should redirect the person back. Or wait, let's do it this way, right? So first things first is going to retrieve the book's information, right? So before all of that, it's going to retrieve the book's information, and when it retrieves the book information, So when he's going to first retrieve the book's information, right? Okay, so let's do it this way. If we're going to first check, is anybody logged in? If there is nobody logged in, right, then redirect back to the login page, right? If there's nobody logged in, then redirect back to the login page. So if there is someone logged in, right, it's just going to keep running the script down, right? So we're going to have this out here. We're going to check here for the book. So we're going to check if there is a book ID, right? If it sets, we use the request. So let's use request, right? I would say book ID, right? Then we'll store, right? We're going to store the book ID and store all of that, right? So so we're going to, if there is actually a book ID, we're going to get the book's details of the user. Basically, that's what we're going to do. So how do we do that, right? So first things first, if there is book ID, we're going to get the book ID. The user ID is already there. Then we're going to get a book ID here. So how do we get the book ID? We'll just say book ID excuse me, book ID is equal to book ID, right? Okay, and I believe let's see what it looks like on view books. And then yep, book ID is like this, right? So we say book ID, or we say book ID, we get the book ID. So now we're going to go and retrieve the book's information, right? So we'll get the book's information. So we'll do that, we'll write SQL, right? I would say select star from books where ID is equal to book ID, right? And user ID is equal to logged in user, right? And then we'll put this. Then we're going to run it. We're going to say we're going to store that. So we're going to say con, right? And then we want to actually create this new variable here. So we're going to have this, right? This is going to store here. Alright, so we'll put this here. I will say con, right? Query, then we'll say SQL, right? So we're going to run that query and we're going to check num rows, alright? Num rows equal to result to get the number of rows, right, that exist. So once if that book actually exists, right? So if num rows is greater than 0, right, if the book actually exists, right, so we are going to fetch the books, right, the book's information. So we're going to say while row equal to result fetch as sock, right? So result fetch as sock, right? While row equal to result fetch as sock, I'm going to create a new books array and we'll store each book inside the books array, right? Alright, so say row. So we're going to store the book's information in there, right? So we're going to store it in there. So what's the next thing now? Basically, then after we've gotten all this information, we want to store. This is personally, I'm going to say for each books as book. So I want to store each book, right? And I'll say book. Let me just go copy that from here. A few books. Now copy all of these and just come and paste it here. Right? So that gives me the access to the book's information, right? And then that is all stored there, right? So But if the book was not found, right, it should just redirect the person back to the view books page, but it should show an error. And what error should it show? It should tell the person, hey, no book was found. Okay, there was literally no book found. So we'll say here session start, and we'll say here will be error flash message, book not found. We'll say no book exists, right? The book does not exist. Let's say the book does not exist, right? So when we come here to the view books, we want to capture all of that, and we would say here if it sets error message, here will be error, then here will be error, and then here will be error, here will be danger. That's Bootstrap. So with that being said and done, so if the book does not exist, it will redirect back to the view books and tell the person that that book does not actually exist, right? So that's how that works. So but if all of this runs successfully and there was no issue, what it means is that the books exist, right? And then the person wants to edit the book, right? So we're going to check the person submitted the book, so he's going to look at the book and he's going to look at the author and he's going to update, right? So he's going to update books, set, right, title, set title, set title to the title, right, and then author to the author, right, where email, where user ID is equal to the user ID, and we say ID, we say where ID is equal to book ID, and user ID is equal to user ID, right? So if it successfully did that, we say book updated successfully and takes you back there. Else, any errors, true. So if there are any errors, it's going to show you here. And what is it going to say here? Yeah, we want this to be active, right? And let's say none of this is active for this place. And then any errors, there was an error in updating the book, right? So let's look at that. So when we click edit, users edit book ID. Edit book was not found on the server at book. Users edit book URL not found on the server. Let's look at that. So we'll come back and we refresh. Users, e-library users, edit book. Okay, edit book.php. So we come back here and we see edit book options, edit book.php, and here will be delete book.php, right? So let's look at that. So we'll come back here and we click this. So it's showing the book does not exist. Why? Let's see. So why is it saying the book does not exist? Edit book. So we come here and we say view books, book ID, view books, ID is this and user ID is this, where book ID is book ID. Oh my, this is supposed to be requests, right? and then so it's showing add a book because we've not done all of that. And here is going to be edit book. Edit a book. So we want the value here, right? This is post title. If somebody is true, so let the value here just be equal to the right. Let's just be the book title. So we'll say book title, right? The book title, the title of the book, and this one will be set to book author. I would say the author of the book going to be like this, right? So okay, so let's see that. Wow. Book title, author, book author, book author. Let's see. Okay. Book author. Value book title. Let's see. Where is all this coming from? Okay. Book author, book title, then edit book, author, echo book author. Oh, book author. That solves that. So you can see that it's showing there, but the title of the book is not showing. So why is that not showing? And let's see book title, right? So where is book title? Book title, right? And then let's come here and then look at this. Why is the title not coming up? Look at the database here and let's see books. No, books. Oh, he hasn't been installing the title all along. I mean, add a book, add book, okay, title, oh my. So we change this to title. I will change this to title, right? Edit book, change this to title. I will change this to title. Let's say introduction to JavaScript, and let's change the placeholder here for edit book, add book, right? Introduction to JavaScript. So when we do that, right, so because initially it wasn't saving the title, that was an error on this part here. So but we'll add a new book and try that again. But let's actually see and edit this book. So let's put a title. Let's just say introduction to JavaScript, and then we say update. You can see that it updated the book, right? So if we try to add a new book, we say add book. Let's say introduction to jQuery, and we say author. Let's just say John Doe, and then we hit up. So you can see all of that, right? So basically that functionality is working. So we have to work on the delete book. Let's assume we want to delete these two books. So we'll just enter this one and then we delete one. Let's say introduction to Bootstrap, and we update. Something's not right. It's adding. Here's supposed to be edit book. No. Add book. Here's supposed to be edit book. So let's try that again. I would say introduction introduction to HTML, and we click update. Let's see, login. Oh, we're supposed to supply the book ID, right? So that's why it did that. So we didn't supply the book ID. So let's quickly supply the book ID here. Yep. Okay. Supply book ID. Right. Supply book ID. Then let's see. It should work. So book ID equal to PHP echo book ID. Let's see, that should work. So let's go back because it's still logged in. Right. So let's try that again. Let's say introduction to backend. Alright, so that worked, right? So that has successfully done that. So that's what that issue. So let's assume we want to delete this particular book, right? So let's work on the delete. But before you try to delete it, there's something we want to do, right? So we don't want a case where somebody mistakenly taps delete and it just automatically deletes it. So we want you to confirm if you really want to delete that book before it deletes the book. So how do we confirm that? We're going to use JavaScript to do that, right? So with JavaScript, we're going to confirm if we really want a book to be deleted or not, right? So let's quickly do that, and then once we do that, so let's quickly do that. So to do that, we come to this add book, right? This edit book here. We come to view books, and we look at this edit book code here, right? So we're going to use JavaScript to make it not delete first. It's going to bring a pop-up, right? And then how are we going to do that? We're going to say on click, right? On click. So when you click it, what do we want it to do? We want it to confirm if you really want to delete it. So we're going to create a function, right? I'm going to pass in the event. I'm going to pass in the link to the delete page, right? So when you click on this delete, it's going to confirm that. So but let's go and create the function for that particular event, right? So I'm just going to use script tag down here and just quickly do that, right? So script, and I say type equal to text slash JavaScript, right? I'll say script. Okay, so how do I do that now? So that when that thing runs, it's going to bring up that function, right? So I want to create a function. So I'm creating a JavaScript function. I'll say function confirm delete, and I'll say the event. The event is the event that's supposed to take it. Events, right? When you have something like this, the event means the default event that happens. So when you click on a link, it takes you to the page, to that route, right? So that's what I'm trying to. So I'm trying to get that event, and I don't want that event to happen when you click on it, right? So when we do it, we have events, right? So with the event, I'm going to prevent default, right? So what this means is that I don't want it to automatically go to that link once I click it, right? So I want to actually show the confirm message, and I'll say user confirm, right? Just create a variable and say user confirm. I'll say equal to confirm. So basically what this is going to do is going to bring a pop-up to the screen saying, are you sure you really want to do this? Are you sure? So let's say, are you sure you want to delete this? And if it says yes, right, if the user confirms it, user confirmed, yes, if the user confirms it, right, then it should actually go and delete it, take the person to the link to delete it. So we'll say the ref and we'll see that URL, right? So basically, this is a JavaScript function. With this in JavaScript, you can actually redirect the page to this particular link, and that link we're getting from is this URL, and that URL we're getting from is the URL that is passed here, which is the URL of this current place, which is this, right? So it's passing it into this, and it's passing the event, and with the event we can actually send this URL here. We can prevent the default thing which takes you to the link once you click on it, and with that we can actually confirm. Then you see URL. So if I refresh this page, so just give a second. Sorry. So if I refresh this page, right, and I tap delete, you can see that it's actually asking me if I actually want to delete it, right? So if I say yes, delete, then it's going to delete it. But I've not done anything for that delete route. So let's just go there and then work on it. Sorry about that. The system is having a bit of overtime, so I'll just pause until it's good. All right. So when you actually click on that, it's going to take you to that link, but we haven't done anything for the link yet. So then let's actually go and work on the delete book route. So inside the users, we're going to have a delete book, right, .php, and in that delete book.php, what are we going to have there? So we're going to be borrowing a lot of some of the code there. So this particular page is what is going to take care of deleting a book. So when somebody actually tries to delete a book, that's what's actually going to go and delete the book, right? So first things first, let's come to edit book. We don't need any form here. We're just going to copy all of this, right? And we're going to come to delete book and paste it, right? So first things first, we're going to check if there's a currently logged in user, right? Then this is good. If there's no user login, then it's going to make sure that there's a book ID, right? So if there is a book ID, then it's going to check, right? So but in this case, we're not trying to pull the book's information, we're just trying to confirm if there is a book. So if the book actually exists, right, we have to first ensure that the book exists. So if the book actually doesn't exist, alright, we don't even need all of that depth, but let's just do it the quickest way we can. So first things first, is going to check if the book exists, right? So this is to check if a book was supplied, right? So if a book was actually supplied, you get the book's ID. This is the book ID and this is the user ID. So we're going to try and delete the book, right? So we're going to delete the book. I'm going to say delete, right, from books, delete from books, delete from books, where the book ID is this and the user ID is that, right? So we're going to execute the query, and we're going to check, right, okay, the affected rows of the query. So we would say con, and then affected rows, and so here is going to store the affected rows. So we say affected rows. Now if the book was successfully deleted, right, I'm trying to make this as basic as possible. If the book was successfully deleted, so we'll just send a message saying, hey, the book was successfully deleted, right? So the book was successfully deleted. The book was successfully deleted. I would say success. right? Back to view books. Then but if it wasn't successfully deleted, we'll say else you should take the person back to the view books page, and they said the book was not successful in deleting. So the book deletion was unsuccessful. We can use that word, right? The book was successfully deleted. So it's a book deletion. Book deletion was unsuccessful, right? And that's how that is it. So that is all for the delete page, right? So it just checks is the book exists. So with that, it checks if there's a logged user. If there's a logged user, it checks for the book. And if it deletes the book was successfully deleted. If it was not able to delete the book, the book deletion was unsuccessful, and that takes care of that, right? So sorry, same issue again. Switch out the port. All right. All right. So sorry about that. So we're back, and so let's go and delete the book now and see, right? So with this, refresh, and we tap delete, you can see that book has deleted. So the book has successfully deleted, right? So what is the next step? So what is the next step, right? The last thing that we want to do is pagination, right? So what's pagination? So let's assume we have like 1,000 records, and I don't want to show 1,000 records on a page at the same time. I want to show like maybe 10 per page, 5 per page, 20 per page. How do we do that? So basically, this is how we're going to achieve that, right? We'll look at we'll go to the view books page, right? And then this is how we can, one of the ways we can paginate, right? So we have to limit the number of books that's going to be shown here per page, right? So first things first, we have to get the number of books we want to show per page. So we'll say records, right, per page, and let's set it to, let's say 1 per page, because we have how many here? We have okay, I think we have about 4 or 5 records right now. So but let's set it to 1 per page. So we say we just want 1 record per page, right? So 1 record per page, and then we have to actually get the current page number. So you could be on page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5. So by the time we do that, so we get the current page number. Let's get the current page. So we say current page, right? And we check if there is a submit page, right? Get, right? If page was submitted, right? So we're going to create, because it's going to be submitting the page number, right? And then it's going to check, and the page number is actually numeric, right? We need a numeric, right? So we check get, right? So we're going to actually supply the page number there, right? We're going to supply the page number. So this is basically is going to say, okay, is there a page number, right? And is the page number numeric? If it is numeric, right? If it is numeric and all that stands and is true, right? So we would say integer, right? With integer, I would say get page number. So make sure that the page number is an integer. I would say page, right? But if there is no page number or anything, just set it to 1. So what is this? What does this mean? Why are we having this? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So if there is actually a page number and the page number is numeric, like if the page, we are going to be submitting the page number, page 2, page 3, page 4, then we'll ensure that the page number is still numeric, and we'll put the page number as this there, right, as the current page. Otherwise, just set the page number to 1. So if any of this is not supplied, If there is no page number, or the page number is supplied and it's not numeric, then we'll just set the page number to 1, right? That's what that means, right? So we have to calculate the offset, right? And then we're going to calculate the offset. So we'll say offset, right, is equal to, so that we'll know where the serial number is actually going to start from, right? So we're going to say offset is equal to current, and we're going to know where our query is supposed to start from, right? The query for the next page, where you should start picking the records from. So our offset will be offset minus 1, right, multiplied by the records per page, right? So that's how we can actually do that, right? So the current page minus 1 multiplied by the records per page will give us the first record on that page that we're supposed to get, since like number depending on the number of pages we're expecting. So right, then when it comes to the query, right, where we have that query, okay, we have that query here. Sorry about that. So we have the query here. That's the page, and oh my gosh. Okay, so all right, so we're going to take all this out. We don't actually need it here, right? And then we're going to put it here, right? Because we're supposed to get all of that before it. So what are we going to do next? So we're going to get the total number of records in that matches that, right? So total records query is equal to, now we're going to select, right? Select count asterisk, right, as total from, basically this entire stuff we have here is still going to come here. So we're trying to get the total number of books, right? So even if there are 10 per page, we're trying to get the total number of books, right? So we have here, right? And then when we do that, we say result equals to con query, right? We're trying to run the query, and we say total records query. How did I do this? Okay, we say result equals to con query total records query, right? And once we've done that, we say row equal to result fetch ASOC, right? Fetch ASOC, I will say total records equal to row total, right? So that gets us the total number of records, right? To give us the total number of pages, right? So that's to get us the total number of pages. So we're going to say total pages, we're going to use this to get the total number of pages, is equal to cell, which is a function for rounding up numbers to the to whole number, total records divided by records per page. So this will give us records per page, right? So this will give us the total number of pages available, right? Right. So that gives us the total number of pages available. Okay. So when we do that, we have to limit this to start from all those things that we set, right? So we say limit, right? Limit records per page, right? Offset is where it should start from. Offset should start from the offset we set, right? And that automatically does all that for us. All right. So we need to actually have a way that we can put the pagination on the page, right? So how do we do that? Now we're going to create a pagination styling, right, to make the pagination look good. But let's do that after here, right? So we echo, I would say, div class called pagination, right? And then right, and now we do some checks to ensure safe. If the current page is greater than 1, right, we say echo, so that's if the current page is greater than 1, if it's not on the first page, right? So we would say ref, right, that will take us back to the previous page, right? View books.php, and this takes us back to the previous page. I would say equal to, right? So that's, then we would say with the current page, right? So it's going to take us back to the previous page, current page -1, and then we now say, and we say, right, we close this back and we say previous. So this takes us back to the previous page, right? So what if, that is if it's not on the current page, and then we need to be able to go to the next pages, right? So we say for, right, we have I equal to 1, right, and then we have I lesser than total pages. So this is like for us to be able to go through pagination, right? And then we have I plus plus, right? So we say echo, we're going to echo a link to take to each page, and we say view books.php, and it's going to pass in the page. That's what I said, we're going to pass in the page, and then we say, right, view books, and then we say I, then dots, right, no. So this is going to pass in these books, right, and then it's going to have this ID here, right, and then all right, so we have this, right, and then we have if, right, if I is equal to current page, right, current page, and then we're going to echo this, and we say dots, we put the I there, and then we're going to have this, and then you can see that, right? So that handles that, and then we're going to have a next, right? So there should be a next, a way to click on to go to the next one, right? So the for no, not this. Sorry about that. I'm getting it all wrong. You see, echo, right, class, because we're going to put some styling there, and we say class, and we say sorry, change to this, and we change to this. This, and we change to this, and then we have this. Right, so let's change that, and then for this we're going to have echo this, right? This stands, so we'll have this, and then we'll have this, then we'll have this, right? So and then let's have this. So then we have so now we're going to check, we're going to run our check, and then we say if is equal to the current page. So we're going to have this, and we'll say active, and we do this, right? And then say echo, right? Echo, and we'll have this. Okay, so this takes care of that. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm still going to explain it again, right? So, and then we're supposed to have a next page, right? For the next, so we say if current page is lesser than the total pages. So if we're not on the last page, right, we're supposed to have a next button. So we're going to echo href equal to view books .php and I'll say page equal to, and then we say current page plus 1, so that you can go to the next page, right? And then we're going to put next, and then we put this, right? So sorry about that, we put this, so that handles that, and I'll say close this, right? Close the div, close this div because we started a div here, right? So we close that div. Okay, so let's actually see what that looks like. All right, computer's having a slight issue, but while that's let's actually put some styling for the pagination so that we'll have a beautiful looking pagination, right? And then I have some, let's just paginate, let's just put some styling for the pagination, right? So let's put some styling for the pagination, and we say pagination class, right? So you want it to display, we have it want to display flex, right? And then we want the justify content to be center, and then we want the align items to be center. Then we want the margin top 20 pixel, and then we want the margin bottom, no, we don't want that. When list style type none, I want padding of 0, right? So so that's for that, and then we have yeah, so let's do some more styling. So say pagination, we say A. Alright, I want to paginate the anchors, and we say color, let's give it a color believe this. Alright, so we say padding, and we say 10 pixel, 15 pixel, so let's give it that, and then say text decoration none, want to have a text decoration. We say border, and we say 1 pixel solid, and we want it, I believe that's that color. And we say let's give it a margin of 0.5 pixel, and let's say border radius, let's give it a border radius of 4 pixel. Let's say transition, let's give it a transition, right? Let's say background color, right? Background color 0.3 seconds is, right? And then let's give the current page some styling. So say current page, let's say pagination, that's active. I would say background color, I would say 007BFF, right? And we say I want the color to be white, so let's say color white. And border color, give it a border color of this 7BFF, right? And then let's hover effect, let's give it a hover effect, right? Pagination hover, right? And then we say not active, right? So we say background color, and then we say F1, F1. Now we say border color, I would say 007BFF, right? And then let's give let's do something again. Pagination when it's disabled, right? I will say color, I will say CCC, I will say pointer when some say none, I will say cursor, that's allowed, don't want that allowed. I will say border color DDD, right? And I want to make it a little bit responsive, right? So mobile responsiveness, so media max width 600 pixel, right? And we say pagination, anchor links, I would say I want to have a padding 8 pixel 12, right? I would say margin 2 pixel. Alright, so let's see how all that looks, right? Undefined variable total pages, undefined variable total pages. So online, alright, 233. Alright, so it's complaining that there's nothing like total pages. Oh, total pages. Alright, so we can see, right, this is the styling. When I click 2, you can see, and I click 3, and I click next, right, this is the last page. So this is basically what I was trying to achieve. Alright, so what am I explaining here? This is to get the total number of records in the database. This is to get the offsets for just to know where to start picking the records from. Record 1 to 10 is there, then you have 11 to 20, like that. This is the current page minus 1 times the records per page in the previous page. This is to get the total number of pages that the thing would have, and this is to select the books based on the limit and starting from that offset, right? All of this is just the pagination design. Then when we come down here, this is to set the pagination there and to give it that what we have there, right? So if I set that as it sets to 1, you can see that it's there, right? If we set it to 2, you can see that. And basically that is that all. You can see when you go to the next page. Okay, something else too, the next page is not incrementing, so serial number, right? Instead of serial number to be this, serial number should be offset, right? Let's see, offset 0 0 1 2, and the offset plus 1. So now we have 1 2 3, right? 1 2 3. You can see it's going up. So basically that is that for the PHP tutorial. Thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for 1 or 2 hiccups, maybe pauses here and there, and system over time. These things happen sometimes. So thank you so much. We hope you enjoy it, and then have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your day.